first step in the process. No one is going to get that joke. There's nothing more pretentious than making a reference to your own movie. Speaking of bad movie night, no.
Hey, you gotta. I mean, the first movies people make are usually pretty bad.
Oh,
But
my first movie is a really crappy backyard reinterpretation of Bulletproof Monk.
yeah,
For anyone who actually knows what that movie is.
yeah.
Travis, were you there for that one? I don't remember if you were.
I wasn't there, but I've seen it.
Okay.
I've seen it.
You've seen Dragon's Bane.
My first film thing was a PSA about the dangers of running with scissors.
Nice.
Yeah, I made a movie when I was making movies since I was like 3 or 4.
Right.
Just messing around with the camera. So, you wanted to see some bad acting, throw in child actor and child director in the same thing.
The thing that makes me laugh the most is the fact that originally Dragon's Bane, the main villain, wasn't supposed to be me because the guy didn't show up. It was supposed to be Adam Miller. And the funny thing about that now is that Adam Miller's actually like gone on to become like a legitimate actor, and he starred on an NBC show last year. And it was like, oh man, I could have been like, hey, he was in this really crappy movie I made in high school.
Hey, yeah. Not everyone can say that.
Not everyone can say that. That being said, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Deadmen Tell All Tales. This is the show where me and a bunch of my buddies all sit around. We talk about the worst of the worst and all sorts of particular topics. But this week we're doing something a little interesting. Originally, we had the idea of doing we took a fan vote on what people wanted to see, and the vote was almost unanimous that they wanted us to talk about the worst sequels ever made. And rather than the more I thought about it, though, there's one sequel that I can think of that is by far worse than probably anything I could have come up with. And we're actually going to be watching that today. But before we start, just so we get it kind of rolling off really quickly off the top of your heads, if you can think of one, what would you say is probably one of the worst sequels you've ever seen?
Rats of Nim 2.
You mean Secret of Nim 2, or?
Yes, that's
Secret
that's
of
the
Nim
one.
2, Timmy to the Rescue. Oh my goodness. Like, I'm not even a person who, like, loves Secret of Nim either, but even then I can watch Secret of Nim 2 and be like, oh, that's where, like, that's what it looks like when you fire, the only guy in your film that gives a damn. Just a travesty of a sequel.
I'm gonna go ahead and throw out Mulan too.
I've seen Mulan too.
If you want to see the characters be the polar opposite of the way they were in the last movie, and yeah.
So I'm trying to think, because, like, Mushu's a dick.
Yeah, he's a total dick.
Mulan openly speaks up against the Emperor in, like, a not empowering way, in more of a whiny kind of way. She doesn't understand politics at all.
The people that she's with are, like, all of a sudden male chauvinist pigs for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, they were playing off that in the first one a little bit, but they weren't like, oh, we've got to find this perfect woman who's exactly the way we want them to be, and
it's like they forgot all of the satire in the first movie was satire and just, like, made that movie. Like, it's like they forgot all the self-awareness or, like, the actual, like, message, all of, like, the pseudo-sexist stuff in the first one was supposed to be, and then just made that movie.
Well, like that guy, and like, of course, that character was always cracking really corny puns in the first movie, right? Totally.
Right.
That was his big thing, right? And it's like, okay.
Travis, do you got one?
Actually, off the top of my head, I would say Fox and the Hound 2.
A sequel so bad we can't even get through it.
That's
we can't get through 10 minutes of it.
It's
the Fox and the Hound.
Don't they split apart at the end of that movie?
Favorite child.
This is a prequel, and it's Fox and the Hound 2.
So
it's a
stop
prequel,
us if
and they go enjoy a band. And it's...
I was about to say, stop us if this sounds stupid. In the middle of Fox and the Hound 2, the baby versions of themselves go off and join a swamp rock band.
Wait a minute.
Stop.
Yeah.
What?
How?
And this is and not all it's even like not all Disney sequels are bad. There are good Disney sequels, but
Oh,
man, is
absolutely.
this not one of
Very
them.
people.
Oh, speaking of that, though, I'm gonna throw out Cars 2. I'm just
Oh
gonna
my
say it
god,
right now.
Cars 2. Like Cars 2 is terrible because it is a sequel movie. It is like Pixar running like down the list of every single sequel movie cliche you can think of. Like it is literally that kind of sequel in every sense of the word. And I can't stand it. They have the Jack Sparrow syndrome where they turn Mater into the main character and put him into a weird, stupid spy parody. Which is even worse because recently for my job, I may or may not have seen the new Melissa McCarthy movie Spy, which may or may not be better than it has any right to be. So, like, I know that spy comedy can be good. Like, I really know it can. Or maybe I don't. But that being said, like, that makes something like that, like, even more sad. Mine off the top of my head, this movie unincluded, because there's nothing beating this, would definitely be Son of the Mask. When someone makes a sequel to your third favorite movie of all time, and it turns out to be your second least favorite movie of all time, you know you have a bad sequel on your hands. You know, you replace Jim Carrey with Jamie Kennedy, and you replace, like, quality Tex Avery style special effects with, like, the worst visual gags you could ever imagine, and, like, break literally every single meta rule of the first movie. Every single one. So, like, it almost feels more like a soft reboot because it doesn't follow enough of the rules of the first movie to actually work. Because Loki's trying to track back down the mask, but the only reason it works in the first place is because Loki is trapped inside the mask. And despite the fact the movie says that the mask only works at night because Loki's a night god, which leads to actually work towards the whole suit riot thing or whatever, he uses it like any time he wants. And then he sleeps with his wife while wearing the mask, which makes his baby a Looney Tune. And I can't even... I just can't even.
So glad I didn't see this movie.
This is why movies that end up in development hell need to stay in development hell sometimes. Because the guy that directed The Mask, I've heard his commentaries and whatnot, he didn't go on to do a bunch of stuff, but the guy had, like, a good set of skills and some good ideas, you know, on his shoulders. And to hear him on that commentary track talking about the fact that he knows there's going to be a Mask 2 before he got fired is, like, the saddest thing on the planet. Like, even Carrey did, like, talk show interviews talking about, yeah, there's going to be a Mask 2, and then he got fired. It's just disheartening. One moment.
Well, in that case, I'm going to bring up another terrible sequel, Hunchback of Notre Dame 2.
I actually know of that one.
It's terrible. Terrible.
So, first off, with the low budget of Hunchback Notre Dame, instead of having, like, the giant cathedral and festival of fools of people, there's, like, 20 people in the whole town.
Oh,
And then the villain is basically Frollo, but, like, 10 times more gay.
Okay.
yeah.
Like, it's so stupid. The whole movie's like, hey, Quasimodo needs a girlfriend. And, like, that specific character isn't so bad, but everything else is.
Yep.
Why do so many of the two movies have to do with, like, hey, let's make this fleshed out, let's try and give the main character a relationship, even though they kind of pseudo have one at the end of...
Well, there's, like, that's, like, the rules of bad sequels. There's, like, I don't know, I won't know the exact number. There's, like, 5 approximate, like, standard plots for the sequel. It's either the prequel, the in-betweequel, main character from the first movie needs a girlfriend / boyfriend, minor character from the previous movie gets their own story, or soft reboot. Those are the 5 bad sequel cliche ways to go.
Or they were in a good relationship at the end of the last movie, and then the beginning of the sequel...
Oh yeah, the
they're in a
uninspired
bad
breakup,
relationship
yeah.
For some reason. Like, they live happily ever after, but not... But then they do
Yay!
again.
Oh joy!
So
So that
speaking of sequels, how about a movie that isn't a sequel to anything but has the number 2 in the title? I think Troll 2.
well, there is technically a Troll 1, but they have nothing to do with each other.
No, they do not. And there's no troll in Troll 2, which is ultimately another level of troll.
Yeah, although that movie would need a segment all to itself. I don't know if we have the strength for that. There's a Birdemic too, and I still haven't seen it yet.
Oh yeah, we gotta set some time aside for those two movies for sure. Those are absolutely awful.